I'm not ready to say it's spring, but it's like, it's getting there. This is gonna be good. So I was gonna do a Q&A, which is what you do when you're a content creator who has run out of ideas. But the first question I got was, what is your favorite place or Lieblingsort in Düsseldorf? So I thought, I can make this more fun. I can make it cooler. So I'm gonna answer your questions from my favorite places around the city. So the first place I chose is the Hafen, where we are right now. It's the media harbor. It's this really cool area. It used to be obviously the old shipping harbor, but then they renovated it over the years when the shipping industry started diminishing a little bit, and now it's the home of ad agencies, tech companies, and all sorts of different media type businesses. Hence, Media Harbor, the name. All right, let's get into the questions. First one on the docket, will you try to get dual citizenship? That's an interesting question because it's kind of changed recently. Germany's actually supposed to make it easier over the next couple of years to get dual citizenship, whereas right now, or the old way, was that it's kind of hard to get dual citizenship. Mostly, you have to give up your current passport to get a German passport. And just with the way the world is right now, I don't know if you've watched the news, but having an American passport seems like it might not be the worst thing to have right now. Feels like a little bit of a safety net. But if it does become easier, I think that it could be a big benefit, because if I'm a German citizen, that also makes me an EU citizen, and then you can kind of move around and go and work anywhere you want in Europe, and it really gives you a lot more freedom. So the answer, it's kind of too far off for me to actually decide right now. I think it would be cool, but it's not worth stressing myself out because it still would take a few more years from this point right now before I could even really consider doing it. This next question comes from a good friend and fellow creator, Nauf, and the reason I call out that it came from Nauf is because of clout. I want some. What is your ultimate goal creatively / on YouTube? I think it's kind of the same. Ultimate goal creatively, since I have started working in a creative field, and since I've started YouTube as well, is really simple, and it's to make things of lasting value. I think that's the ultimate goal of a lot of creators, is to make something that resonates with people to the point where they'll come back to it and still get those feelings from it. All my favorite art is something that I can go back to and still feel close to it and feel like it means something to me. So I think that that's my ultimate goal in creating anything, is to create something of lasting value. Now on YouTube specifically, I don't know, it's changed a lot, honestly. And it actually plays into another question I got, so I'll kind of stack these on top of each other. Someone asked if I'm ever gonna do the type of like studio videos where I sit down and I talk about a piece of some culture and compare it to another culture and expound on it that way. They even went so far as to ask if I'm gonna start making videos with like the thumbnails with flags in them and stuff like that. And my answer is no, and it's not because I don't like them. It's one, because there's already people doing it really well. So it just doesn't make sense for me to jump in and try and make the same exact stuff that other people are making. And then the other side of that question, the second piece, is I also just don't want to make that stuff. It wasn't my goal when I started the channel. I accidentally fell into this thing of like making videos that were very much about me living in Germany and about German culture, because I live here and that is what I'm experiencing. But the whole goal all along was more to lean into this idea of experiential storytelling. I live something and I either take you along and tell you about it, or try to find some story in it that can be relatable to a lot of people in whatever experience they're having in life. So in that sense, I never had the goal of being an American in Germany YouTube channel. I guess I am by the virtue of just me being an American in Germany and making YouTube videos. But the whole goal from when I started to now to the future is to tell stories about the human experience, regardless of where I am or where I'm living. And with that, let's go to our next location.
Counted the money, okay, okay. Might buy a crib with a view in LA. Niggas keep plotting, they want me to break down. Nah.
For the next questions, I think I need to phone a friend. So let's meet up with the other star of the Tommy Crossen channel.
Woo! Counting the money, okay, okay. Might buy a crib with a view in LA. Niggas keep plotting, they want me to break down. Nah.
Did you say you don't have a very symmetrical face?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What? It's not that big of a deal. A lot of people don't have very symmetrical faces.
Says the model.
Ex.
We're splitting hairs now.
Ex-model, ex-husband.
Wife. That's a good segue into the first question that is for both of us. What's something that we learned about marriage since moving abroad? You go first.
No, go first. I want to hear your answer.
Okay. I think that in our experience, or at least in my experience, I noticed more that people have different strengths and you just have to embrace your partner's strengths and embrace your strengths in the relationship and both do what you're good at to kind of create the team that you are together. Because the most obvious thing is me speaking German when we got here. So that meant that I had to do a lot of things that sometimes I actually would just let you do in the States. Basically talk to everyone because I hate talking to people. Talking to people on the phone, doing like, I don't even tell the waiter if they got my order wrong. But now it's on me.
No, I do that.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you do that. But I don't like watching you do that. I think that's like the most obvious example, but yeah, just that you're a team, you come together with different strengths.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably the fact that I like know now. I mean, I knew before, but it really just solidified that like we very much actually like each other. I think being in a new country where we didn't know anybody else and didn't really have much of a choice other than to be with each other the entire time, just, I don't know, I was like, oh no, I really genuinely like this person. Like, not only is he my husband, he's my friend, but then even like day in and day out when we were doing the same thing in the house over and over again, could only go to Reva, it was still fun, and I felt like we still like made it fun. And so I learned that like,
that you actually like me?
yes.
That you like me?
Mm-hmm.
The other question
Okay.
that people asked was, were you on board with the idea of moving to Germany, or did it have to grow on you?
Yeah, I mean, I was on board with the idea of moving anywhere because it was my idea to leave.
Was it your idea to leave?
I think so. No. Was it a family idea?
I think it was a family idea.
Okay.
But
Well, I mean, I was on board with anywhere, really. I mean, because you just got the job first, but we were both putting in job applications just like all over the world, and we kind of had the conversation that we were just committed to wherever we got a job, or one of us got a job, like that's where we would go. So I think I was committed to the idea of anywhere, and then when it was Germany, it was like, great, this is what it is. And yeah, I think that's been it. I've been like A1, day one, living this life, baby, about this life.
this is for both of us, but do you think there will be a point where we stop feeling like expats or like immigrants?
No, I don't think so. I think, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think maybe I would think differently if I have mastered like the language, but even if I was fluent like tomorrow, I feel like you would always still feel like you would know you were an immigrant, but not in a bad way. I think, yeah, I don't know, I spent a huge portion of my life not living here, so that doesn't just like disappear. But I also think that you can like be accepted into a different culture and community and appreciate the things about it. That's a long way of saying no, but not for like any bad reason.
I think my answer is probably the same. Like I do want to feel, I guess, integrated at a certain point, but I don't think that'll stop me from feeling like a foreigner necessarily. Like I think two things can be true at once. All right, it was great having you.
Thank you. You're like, I'm never gonna do it again.
Nope, the people like seeing you.
They do?
Nope.
Oh,
You guys. Thank you.
always do it.
We always do a good handshake.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next. Wife.
What?
I'm tryna hang with your boo in a few. Buy me a flight from the 8 in the moon. Niggas just worried, don't know what to do now. Tell them the check finally adding up. Paper coming like bills right on schedule. Whoa, this the moment I finally didn't had an epiphany. Working for me, I don't do it for you. Constantly working to tell you the truth.
So we've made it to our next stop of the Tommy's Favorite Places tour. Right now we're on Karolingerstraße, which is one of the most famous streets in Düsseldorf, for multiple reasons. Well, one, I mean, it's just really cute. Look how cute it is. And 2, flowing down the middle of this street is the river Düssel, which, if you've listened to the name of the city I live in, you would know that that's the river the city is named after. Düsseldorf means Düssel village, so like village on this river, which has become kind of ironic in my opinion because this isn't really the river most people talk about in this town. It would make a lot more sense to talk about the Rhine, but there's already a place called Rheindorf in Leverkusen, and I don't think anybody wants to live there. So this feels like a good spot to do my next question, and it is, how is your German coming along? We knew it was going to come up eventually. The short answer is good, really good even. I mean, that's what everybody tells me. But internally, I always kind of like underrate my own German skill, and I think it's because I've reached a point where I know enough to know how much I don't know. Does that make sense? At a basic level, like, crushing it. I totally get why people say that my German's really, really good, but once I get past basic things, complex or abstract ideas are really hard to communicate. So that's kind of what I'm working on now. I'm trying to up my grammar so I can start expressing the existential ideas that are always going on in my head, because if you couldn't tell, if you watch the channel a lot, I'm kind of always in a state of existential crisis. I don't know if that's healthy or not. And that transitions itself quite nicely into the next thing I want to talk about, which are the people who not only sponsor these videos, but the people who are also helping me learn German right now, and that is Lingoda. I started using Lingoda in January, so now I've been using it for about 3 months, and it's been super good for me. I talk all the time about how the flexibility is nice. It's an online language school, so you're actually talking to real native level teachers, which is awesome. And they really get people speaking. The whole philosophy is to get you speaking as much as possible. And one of the things that I think is most interesting with Lingoda is the Language Sprint Challenge, which is exactly what I want to talk to you guys about right now. The Language Sprint Challenges are unique to Lingoda, and it's this thing where you take a month-long intensive language course. So you can either take 30 classes for a month or 15 classes for a month, and if you go to every single class, you'll get money back at the end. If you choose the 30 class option and you go to a class every single day for 30 days, you'll get 100% cash back. You really can't beat language classes for free. If you choose 15 classes over 30 days and you go to all 15 classes, you'll get 50% back at the end. Really good deal as well. And of course, if you use my code when you sign up for a Language Sprint course, you'll get even more money off. You'll get either 25 USD or 20 euro off your deposit for the classes. So I know a lot of you watching this are people who are like about to move to Germany or maybe just did. I even got questions from some of you who were like, I just moved to Düsseldorf, and you had questions about certain things, which if I don't answer in the video, maybe I'll shoot you a message or something like that. But this is a great way for you to start learning German right now if you're about to move or if you just moved. It's flexible, it's affordable. I highly recommend it because I've gone to a bunch of classes over the last 3 months. And with that said, we'll now go to our next place. Is this the final location? I don't know. We're just going to the next place though. So right now I'm sitting on the steps of Rochuskirche. It's kind of hard to say. I think I said it right. The reason this is one of my favorite places is because you've got this huge old tower and then you've got this really weird other structure, which I think is the actual church. And it's just a cool combination of like something very old and then something that feels kind of contemporary and experimental, but they work together. It feels right. If I want to get really metaphorical, spoiler alert, I do. It's kind of what Düsseldorf is like as a whole. You've got old traditional right next to contemporary, kind of unconventional, and it just works together. Speaking of contrasting things, it plays into my next question, which is what is your least favorite and your favorite thing about the German language? Least favorite, definitely run-on sentences. I'll get a letter from like the government or my bank or the tax office, and I'll be 2 paragraphs in before I realize that I'm actually still in the first sentence and I have no idea what the hell's going on. Favorite thing, and this is some other people's least favorite thing, are filler words. I don't know why, I just love them. And Germans do too. They love to throw in a tja, ja, klar, stimmt, genau, doch, gar, sogar, quasi. And I only really know how to use half of them accurately, but they just add so much to a sentence while also adding almost nothing. It's beautiful in a way. We still got a few more places to go and a few more questions to answer, so let's keep moving. So right now I'm in the Hofgarten, which is like one of the most famous, most beloved parks in Düsseldorf. The reason it's one of my favorite places is because it's such a nice place to just come walk the dog and wind down at the end of the day. I probably spend most evenings walking Fergus through this park and along these trails. It's just really nice. Somebody left a beer bottle here though, so you can tell how much people like it here. All right, next question. Does the world feel smaller or bigger now that you've seen more of it? I'd say bigger, definitely. Honestly, going to more places and seeing how many people, how many cultures there are in so many different little corners of the world makes you realize how small your existence is if you're just staying in your town or your city or your country. And I would say that I'm in a moment where I've seen enough of the world now to realize just how much of it I haven't seen and how much of it I don't know. And that makes it feel really, really big. This beauty is the Tonhalle. It's one of the most famous music venues in Düsseldorf, probably the most famous music venue in Düsseldorf. Lots of classical music, all the really big classical acts come here to play, but it's also just kind of like a center for musical culture in Düsseldorf. I don't know, I've never been in. I only like it because they have this amazing terrace out here that's super beautiful during the summer. So when the weather's nice, you can come up here, you can sit, you can have a beer, you can look over the Rhine River, you've got a great view of the whole city from up here. It's really, really nice. It's also right next to a main street, so if you hear some noise, it's because of that. But I came up here too because this is probably the best place, the most thematic place that I can come to answer my next question. Do you listen to any German music, and if so, what are your favorites? Yes. Yes, I do. There's kind of like two levels to me liking German music. The first one I'll talk about is the music that I didn't really know about until I got here or until we said we were gonna move here. That's like more contemporary music that I otherwise probably wouldn't have found unless I like really went and looked for it. For me, I really love Apache. He's like the biggest rapper or one of the biggest rappers in Germany right now. His music's super interesting, super like 80s inspired, really fun. Then there's this smaller German rapper, I don't know if he's smaller physically, I don't know why I did that, but he's not as well known. His name's Umze, and he does a lot of more old school sounding hip hop. He samples a lot of retro songs, so he's got this cool, chilled, lo-fi vibe. I really dig that. And there's this funky little indie pop group called Jeremiah's, which I just discovered the other day. Really interesting. I don't know that much about them, but I've listened to their new album a lot already, and it's pretty nice. I'd recommend it. But my favorite, all-time favorite, is Peter Fox. I listened to his only solo album since basically the day it came out in 2008. My brother was living abroad here when he came out with that album, so he showed it to me and I just loved it. I listened to that album to this day, can highly recommend it. It's one of the most like influential German contemporary albums of the last like 25 years. And by extension, his band Seed, which is like a dance hall reggae band, I've really liked listening to them recently since I've got here in Germany. They make a lot of really cool stuff. Their most recent album absolutely slaps. I can recommend that one too. Cheers. Been a long journey, but we finally made it to our final location. For real this time. This is actually, I checked, it's the last one. Where I've brought you for the final questions is the Fortuna Büdchen. Büdchen is like a colloquial regional term for a kiosk or a little beer hut. And depending on where you go in Germany, they'll call them something else. Like in Berlin, I think it's called a Späti. Really, it feels like every town, every city, every region has their own little word for it, which is, honestly, it's just adorable. The reason this is one of my favorite spots is that it's such a local landmark. It otherwise would not be famous at all because it's kind of a shitty little kiosk that sells beer and, I don't know, these weird little Brötchen that have chocolate on them. Don't ask me. But because it's the Fortuna Büdchen and it's so intertwined with the local culture, and you come here before you go to a Fortuna game and then you ride your bike all the way to the stadium, it's just makes it such a special spot, and people love it here. Not to mention, it's probably the best spot in Düsseldorf to watch a sunset. Lots of things to love here. And to finish it off, I'm gonna give you guys kind of a rapid fire of a bunch of questions that I didn't really get to yet. So hopefully I get to everybody's. I might not, there were way more than I expected. Feeling nervous about traveling abroad, what are your best tips? The best tip I can give is a super obvious one. Just look up what the rules are right now around coronavirus, because it can make or break a trip abroad at the moment. Right now, I think it's definitely changing. Pretty much everything's opening up, but even a month ago, I know people who went on a trip and they did not get to do any of the things they wanted to because everything was closed down. I don't think you're gonna have a problem with it now though, but just in case, check, make sure, do that. What's the most frightening experience you've had while traveling? I've been pretty lucky. I've not really had a ton of frightening experiences. I guess the most surprising one was when we were in Colombia and we went into a drugstore, and just in every drugstore there's usually someone in there guarding the place with a gun, and in the back of the store right next to the shampoo was a cop with a shotgun. So surprising, I guess frightening, but more so just a little unsettling. Someone I used to work with said, say something about copywriting. If you guys don't know, I've talked about it before, but I'm a copywriter, an advertising copywriter. So if I'm gonna give you one piece of advice about copywriting, write how people talk. Don't write how you think people talk. It's a big difference. This person just said, Fiction alt? That's a type of alt beer, fiction. I think the question is, do I like it or is it my favorite? I do like it, it's not my favorite. This one, Schumacher, is one of my favorites, but you really can't go wrong, except with Frankenheim. Nobody likes it. You didn't hear from me. The next one, Altbier oder Kölsch? Well, I'm literally at the Fortuna Büdchen drinking an alt, so what am I gonna say to this one? I actually do really like Kölsch too, but especially when you're in Düsseldorf, you're just not gonna drink it. Same as if I were in Cologne, I wouldn't be drinking Altbier. You drink the beer of the place you're in. Full stop. The sun is going down really fast, so I've got to start answering these quicker. Favorite treat from the German bakery? Berliner. I actually really love glasiert Berliner, which is a Berliner, but just glazed. What are your thoughts on how Germans deal with springtime? Eating ice cream, sitting outside, taking off jackets, etc. Yes, that's a really funny thing about how Germans deal with springtime. If there's 1 second of sunlight, I mean a second, they're outside eating ice cream, they're outside sitting and eating at restaurants. No, even if it's still super, super cold, you will catch somebody out here crushing an ice cream cone as long as the sun's out. Sun's out, cone's out. What's the meaning of life? We just ran out of time. Sun's going down, I don't have a chance to answer that one. Well, I hope you guys liked coming along with me on a very jam-packed day of seeing a lot of Düsseldorf. Hopefully you learned something about the city and about me, and hopefully you'll subscribe and stick around for more. Until then, ciao.